What do you think about when you think about Colombia? Do you think of a country with strong economic growth, low inflation, decreased unemployment, and growing investment? To hear more about the strengths and weaknesses of the Colombian economy, I sat down with Luis Fernando Mejía, Director of Macroeconomics at the Colombian Ministry of Finance.
Well, the Colombian economy has actually managed to grow at a very positive rate of about 4.7%. We actually hope that this year we're going to reach potential, which is 4.7% as well. Most of the growth has been driven by the financial sector, construction, and the social services, which is government, health, and education sectors. These other sectors have been very dynamic in the past few years. The only, drawback in the recent growth has been the manufacturing sector, which has been contracting for the past 2 or 3 years. But specifically this year, we actually hope that the manufacturing sector is going to grow. So it's going to add up to a little bit of the growth this year. So the perspectives are really positive this year.
And what can be done to assist the manufacturing sector? Why are you more optimistic this year? Are there any policy thrusts in that direction?
Yeah, well, I think there are 3 main channels which are affecting the manufacturing sector. The first channel is the long appreciation of the exchange rate for the past 8 years. That has been reversed for the past year. Actually, there has been an important devaluation of the exchange rate of about 9%, and of course that's going to improve the productivity of the manufacturing sector. The other effect is the external demand. External demand is going to be much higher this year, and we're going to finally be able to have an important thrust from the US and the European economy, and that's going to pick up export from the manufacturing sector. And there's a third impact, which is a plan that we launched in April of last year, of 2013, in which we actually implemented a subsidy for the housing sector of about 2.5% in the interest rate, and that improved a lot the growth of the construction sector during the second part of last year. And about a quarter of the manufacturing sector is tied to the construction sector, so that's going to help growth this year as well.
Now, you mentioned Colombia's growth, which has been steady and strong for a couple years now. But I think another reason people are very optimistic about the Colombian economy is they've paired this growth with macroeconomic stability. What's behind that? How has Colombia been able to achieve something that's so difficult for Latin America?
Yeah, I think it's a long-run tradition of an important technocracy taking charge of the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank. I think that's the main ingredient. The political conditions that led to that, I'm not so sure why is that, but that's the end of that's the answer is just a very important long-run tradition of huge technocracy taking charge of these 2 institutions. And that implies that monetary policy has been very stable. We're the only Latin American economy with a hyperinflation during the 1970s or the 1980s. We have never had a default of our debt in the short term, in the modern history of Colombia. I think that stability from the point of view of the monetary policy and the fiscal policy have been run for the past 70 or 80 years, and that contributes to macroeconomic stability. And
you expect there to be whoever wins the upcoming presidential election, are you concerned that this could have there could be a directional change in Colombian macroeconomic policy?
Yeah, not at all. That has never been a worry for investors. That's something that's typical in Latin America, but Colombia is probably the only case in which we always know that whoever takes charge of the running of the economy, the main lines of macroeconomic stability and financial stability are going to be there.
Mm-hmm. So it seems that the real threat to this macroeconomic stability doesn't come from within Colombia, but may actually be internationally in terms of the United States tapering and the tightening of crisis-era macroeconomic policy. I guess there was a fluctuation in the Colombian currency when this first was hinted at that this would happen. How concerned are you about U.S. tapering, and what strategy does the ministry have moving forward to stabilize any turbulence?
Sure. The way we see it in the ministry is that the tapering of monetary policy in the U.S. is going to have effects to 3 channels in Colombia. First, the financial channel. Second, the real channel. So the real channel, well, let me talk first about the financial channel. The financial channel is the short-run effect. As soon as we get expectations of tapering in the U.S. monetary policy, there was a huge spike in domestic government rates. There was a devaluation of the exchange rate. And in the short run, that increased a little bit with the volatility of financial markets. That's going to be the short-term, even medium-term effect. A rise in the interest rates that's going to raise the cost of capital in Colombia a little bit. Now, the other channel is the real channel. The real channel is tied to the fact that the only reason that the monetary policy normalization is happening is because the U.S. is getting back on track in terms of growth. That's the only reason. And that's good news for Colombia, because for Colombia, the U.S. is the main trading partner. So as soon as the U.S. picks up its growth rate, of course, exports to the U.S. are going to rise as well, and it's going to have an impact in raising growth in Colombia. And that's going to be the more sustained effect in the medium or long run. So the challenge in the ministry and the government has been to try to manage this excess volatility in the short run in the financial markets and the debt markets. And there's an important strategy that we implemented with the tax reform in 2012, which was lowering the tax withholding rate for foreign investors of local government debt. Before the tax reform, about 2% or 3% of holders were foreign holders. After the tax reform, we lowered the withholding rate from 33 to 14%. And then currently, in just 1 year, that share has risen from 3% to 12%. And I think that bringing more participants to the market that have different perspectives for investments is going to lower volatility when these episodes happen. And that's going to be an important effect in the medium run. Is going to be that as we have a more deep, a more liquid market, this excess volatility is going to be dampened in the future.
Do you expect? It seems like you believe Colombia is positioned to withstand any turbulence. Do you expect us, if we were on an airplane, would you advise the passengers to tighten their seatbelts for a period of turbulence?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely, we're fully aware of the potential negative impacts of normalization. We're not saying that there's not going to be a negative impact. We're actually saying that the Colombian economy is going to probably be able to manage through its way out of this turbulence without, changing its course. But the plane is going to move. The plane is going to move.
Is infrastructure the number one weakness of the Colombian economy, would you say?
Yeah, that's the main bottleneck. That has been identified by the World Bank, by the OECD, but several economists in Colombia as well as the main bottleneck, lowering productivity growth. And as soon as we are able to make this jump, just catching up with our peers, not that we're aiming for a developed economy growth, we're actually aiming for something consistent with our level of economic development that's going to raise productivity.
But I know you played an important role in helping construct the tax reform. As I understand it, the idea was on the one hand to lower taxes to increase productivity, while on the other hand bringing more jobs off the shadow economy and onto the books so that the overall effect would be revenue neutral.
Exactly.
Is this a correct understanding, and has it been an effective implementation? Yeah,
so I think what the main objective of the tax reform was, as you mentioned, bringing some workers from the shadow economy, from the informal economy to the formal sector. Just to give you a brief overview of the data, so in Colombia, about 2/3 of the workers are in the informal sector, and about 2/3 of the firms as well are in the informal sector, meaning they don't pay any taxes, that they don't make any contributions to Social Security. So just 1/3 of the economy is actually in the formal side. So the main objective of the tax reform was actually tackling that high informality rate. And one of the main diagnostics in terms of how to improve formality was lowering the cost of hiring a formal worker through lowering the administrative and the non-wage costs. So non-wage costs for hiring someone formally before the reform were about 53%. After the reform, about 34% of the wage. And that has had a huge impact in terms of formal job creation. Just to give you a couple of numbers. So before the reform, the employment growth of both the formal and informal sector was about 3%. After we implemented the reform in 2013, there was a structural break. The formal job rate started to rise, and closed at the end of 2013 at 8% growth, and the informal growth rate actually fell to 3%, so minus 3%. So there's a huge improvement in formal job creation and a contraction in informal job creation. That has been a tremendous impact. We managed to lower the informality rate about 3 percentage points in just 1.5 years. And the impact of this in terms of rising formality are going to be seen specifically in tax revenues in the medium run.
And you know that we talked before, there's a lot of excitement right now in Washington and I think in Europe, around the world, about Colombia. We at the Bertelsmann Foundation have been calling it Pacific Puma. What do you think of this term? Do you think there's something in it? Is it a silly term?
No.
How would you react to the idea that the international community would view Colombia as a Pacific Puma?
Yeah, I think it sounds very good. I mean, and it's when I first heard about it, it rang the bell in a specific sense, which was that Colombia, like a Puma, in the sense that people have typically never put the light on Colombia. But the strength of the Colombian economy has always been there. We actually, for the past years, managed to reach our potential in terms of having very important growth rates, high investment rates. So people don't think about Colombia in a very explicit way. But the Pacific Puma, that rings a bell because Colombia is actually like a Puma. Very strong, you don't notice it if you don't actually look hard for it. And I think it's a very good term for characterizing how we see Colombian economy. We're now a strong economy and people are taking notice of it.
So last question, Colombia 2014 in Brazil, can they win?
Well, I'm pretty, I have a lot of discussions with my colleagues about this. I think that Colombia has a very good team, and actually, I would be happy if we reach quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals.
Yeah, that would be my. I would be happy. Of course, I would be happier if we advance further, but I think our objective should be quarterfinals. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much.